Welcome to Daniel Reviews. I'm Daniel Goodwin, and today we're looking at the Ecoflow Delta Pros and the Ecoflow Smart Home Panel. I'll have a separate video where I go over the Delta Pro in more detail, but today I want to focus mostly on the Smart Home Panel and how it integrates the Delta Pros into your house circuitry. To start with, the Smart Home Panel I think is the most misunderstood product in the Ecoflow lineup, and I want to hopefully give a little more insight as to what it does, how it's useful, and maybe what it's not useful for, as the case may be. To begin with, there are essentially three ways you can use a Delta Pro. One is all by itself. It's got 110 outlets here. Well, they're all 110 single phase outlets here, but you've got four standard plugs, and then you've got a 30 amp. Typically this is used for RVs. There's probably some other use, but just to be clear, this is not an electric dryer plug. It may look like one. It is not. It is a 110 volt 30 amp plug, and you will not be powering any dryers off of that. And then you got your direct current USB outlets, USB-C. First use case, you can absolutely just plug your appliances or your extension cords into this, run the things in your house. That is totally doable. You don't need any additional cables or hookups to do that. It just can get a little bit messy trying to run an extension cord all through your house. So if you're looking for something better than just plugging in directly, we can talk about the next thing. Option two, if you want something a little more advanced beyond just plugging directly into your Delta Pro, you could over here you could pay an electrician to install a generator inlet. Then you could just plug your Delta Pro into that, power your panel, or you could go a little more high tech and have a small sub panel of switches that you could switch back and forth between which ones you want to run on battery and which ones you want to run off the grid. But that is all manual, and in the case of an outage you would have to be down here to flip switches and move things around. So what do these smart home panels allow you to do? Well, essentially what they allow you to do is to integrate your Delta Pros into your house circuitry in a somewhat fixed way, permanent way, an automatic way. And that's why these smart home panels are superior, in my opinion, to a generator inlet or a manual transfer switch, because these allow you to set up routines and integrate them into your house energy solution on a regular, everyday occurrence. So if all you're looking for is to power your house in an emergency situation where you don't have power, then I wouldn't really recommend the smart home panel because it's overkill for what you need. You might as well just go ahead and go with a manual transfer switch. You have a power outage, you come down here, you turn the switch and kick these on, and away you go. But the smart home panel allows you that when power goes out, they automatically kick on immediately within 20 milliseconds. Really, really fast. Maybe not quite UPS fast, but very fast that, at least in my house, none of my sensitive electronics, really have a problem with that kind of delay. It's very fast. I never lose internet. My modem stays powered up. My computers stay powered up. You might notice a little blink in the lights, and that's about it. So it's very fast automatic transfer upon power outage, which is great. But again, that's not a reason to buy this. What I think is the main reason to buy the smart home panel is that you can integrate this into your house and set up routines so that when the sun's up and you've got solar input coming in feeding these Delta Pros, you can switch over to use the Delta Pros, come off the grid entirely for all the circuits that you have set up on the smart home panel, run off the Delta Pro all those hours during you get into your sunlight production, and probably many hours past that drawing off the battery banks, maybe enough that it will last you to the next day when the sun comes back up and you can replenish your storage. So depending on your energy usage, with a setup like this, this could allow you to run your house entirely off of solar power and battery power alone without having to draw from the grid. In theory, it could drop your energy use from the grid to zero. Practically, that may not work. It really depends on your climate, your sun production, your battery capacity, all that. A lot of things go into that. But in theory, it could allow you to do that, which a manual transfer switch would not do that for you. This smart home panel is connected to my main circuit, and within the smart home panel are 10 relays, which can power 10 individual circuits in single phase. But if you open this up, it's pretty basic inside. You have 1 through 10 of your relays, and they have the lights indicating that they're powered up. And right now, because it's blue, it tells me that these are being powered by my Ecoflow Delta Pro, the battery. It's being powered by the battery, not by the grid. When it's a solid white, it would be the color of this lightning symbol, it will mean that it's being powered by the grid. It's pretty simple. You have two connectors here for 2 Delta Pros can be connected into the smart home panel. In a single phase setup like I have here in this panel, it works that it draws power from one Ecoflow Delta Pro, and then depending on load, it might draw from the other, but it's not balanced. You're not going to see an equal drawdown of both Delta Pros if you have this set up in single phase. So you might see one Ecoflow or one Delta Pro at 60% and your other Delta Pro at 45%. It's just because of the load that's being powered as far as how it draws from both. But if one Delta Pro goes down to say 0 or whatever your cutoff threshold is, it will pull from the other Delta Pro. So it will use them both to the discharge limit that you set. It's just a matter, it's not going to necessarily perfectly balance them. Here you can see both of my Delta Pros that are connected to that single phase smart home panel. Each of the Delta Pros have 2 accompanying batteries. That's why there's a total of 6 units there. And you can see based on the load right now that they're was pulling 600 watts from this top one. Then it dropped down, and now you can see, we'll just zoom in here, you can see that that bottom unit is now getting the full brunt of it, 1100 watts being pulled out of that one. And it kind of will cycle back and forth between the two like that. So it's not an even draw from both. With the single phase panel, I would say I'm very pleased with the performance that I've received. I've had this running since November of 2022, and I've added batteries to it, but basically I've had at least the 2 Delta Pros in the single phase smart home panel connected since November, and it's worked really well. I have no complaints with the single phase. I've had a few quirks with the app, the phone app, and I'll go over that in a bit, but overall it's been pretty reliable, pretty consistent every single day. It kicks on, starts drawing power from the batteries as the solar input comes online each day. And with the extra batteries, I have a total of 20 kilowatt hours here, right here. And for my 110 single phase circuits, that is enough on a good day when the sun's out and I don't have cloudy conditions. This will run my entire house for the entire day through the night until the next day when the sun comes back up. So even in those cases, other than a day when it's completely rainy, I'm probably able to reduce my grid use by 90% easily on the 110. I'll talk about the 240 split phase in a minute, but as far as the pure 110 circuits, this will do it. This is a whole home backup for me in my house. My house is 3,500 square feet. It's an older house. It's not particularly well insulated, and everything in the house runs on electricity. This unit this 20 kilowatt hours is good. I will say I wish I had more. I wish I had at least another 10 kilowatt here and maybe 20 to get me through those days when it's not, when I'm missing out on sun production and it's cloudy. Okay, so this is my second smart home panel, and this is running split phase. And I will say, compared to the single phase, this has been very problematic for me. A few things stemmed from my own lack of understanding about how split phase worked, and some of it's just been some problems with the hardware / software. I'll start with the things that were kind of my own misunderstanding or confusion and go from there. First thing I want to point out is, if you are running this in split phase, like I am, you don't get 10 circuits here, 1 through 10. You get 5. Because the way that works is you're using circuit 1 and circuit 2 together to make one circuit, or I should use the word relay. You're using relay 3 and 4 together to make another circuit, 5 and 6, and so on and so on. So that's the biggest misunderstanding I had, is that if I run this in split phase, particularly for this panel is 100% dedicated split phase, I reduce my capacity by half. I can only have 5 circuits here. That was a big surprise for me. Probably should have known it, but I didn't. And let's just chalk that up to inexperience. The second big one that wasn't clear to me is that in this panel you can get different relays. And the relays you can get a 30 amp relay, a 20 amp relay, a 15 amp relay, so on. But only some of these relays can support the 30 amp, for example. So I can't have 30 amp on 1 and 2, 3 and 4, 5. I can't have 30 amps all the way through. Only relays 1 through 4 support 30 amp, and I believe only relays 5 through 8 support 20 amp. I have to double check that, but point is, you are very limited, that I wasn't clear on. So if you have 30 amp relay circuits that you need to use, you have to put them on 1 and 2, 3 and 4. Otherwise, it's not supported by the rest of the panel. Overall output from the panel is also limited to 30 amps at 240, which is 7,200 watts. You can go a little bit higher for a peak burst, if you've got something starting up and it draws 8,000, maybe 9,000 watts. As long as it's only drawing it for a very limited time, then the panel will work. But if it goes above that, it will trip. And these relays trip a lot faster than the main circuit trip. So these electronic relays trip. They're very sensitive. In fact, my air conditioner / heat pump will trip it every single time, and it doesn't sound good when it goes off. The whole relay is just click 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 while it's running. Sometimes it will go ahead and allow it through until the air conditioner levels off and drops down to, say, like a 4,000 watt draw or a 5,000 watt draw. But during that initial startup, it is a very significant pull. The other thing that I should mention on this panel is that if you are going to run it in split phase, particularly if you're going to do mixed usage, so let's say you're going to put a 240 circuit on 1 and 2, and then maybe another 240 on 3 and 4, and then you're going to put 110 on 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. You can do that. However, understand that while 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 are perfectly balanced, in that they will equally draw down from both your Delta Pros as those circuits run, these are not. 5, 7, and 9 are on one Delta Pro, and 6, 8, and 10 will be on your other Delta Pro. And there is no load sharing between those two. It's not like the single phase where it might circle back and forth between the two Delta Pros. If, let's say, circuits 6, 8, and 10 have a much heavier load than 5, 7, and 9, you will deplete your Delta Pro on these circuits much faster, and once that Delta Pro is out, the other Delta Pro will not, provide power to these. You'll just be completely out, you'll be on grid power, and also you'll knock out your split phase as well, because you don't have two legs coming from your Delta Pro. So it's very, very tricky to run a mixed array here and get that balance right. Obviously the 240 is perfectly balanced, but these, if you were running these as single phase, it's almost impossible to get that balance really well, where you don't have one Delta Pro depleting significantly faster than the other Delta Pro.
This is the Ecoflow app that accompanies their smart home panels, as well as their Delta Pro units and all the other things that they sell. You can see I have both my smart home panels here, as well as my total of 4 Delta Pro units. I have them named in a way that I think makes sense to me, but you can obviously name them how you want. Let's look at the smart home panel. First, the single phase. You can see as you drill in, you've got a quick overview of how much energy your house has used today, in the past, since midnight, essentially, and how much you're currently using. I've used 13 kilowatt hours so far, and I'm currently about one kilowatt an hour. You can drill in a little bit further by clicking here. Yeah, and you can see all of the circuits, how much is currently being used. Not a surprise, my fridge and microwave circuit is using a significant amount, as well as my furnace and the bathroom hall. I've got these labeled as best I can. It's an old house. I have a lot of things on the same circuits, so it's a little difficult to understand everything. Additionally, you can see a log here of events. Mostly it's about when the circuits are switching to and off of battery power. I was doing an update to the Delta Pros this morning, or this afternoon, and that's why it says a discharge area, because it disconnects them. Here you can see, and you can drill in a little more detail. I can see exactly how my energy usage has gone today. This is from my home. Particularly, I can see when the battery started kicking in, which is not a surprise. It started around 11 a.m. and has gone on since then, and how much the grid usage was. Over here, you can set this for up to a month. Let's just adjust this real quick. And so you can see that total I've used 528 kilowatt hours so far for the past month. And if I go to the battery and do the same, I can see that 300 and almost 30 kilowatt hours of that has been the battery. So, and that's just for completeness, on the grid, I've only used 198 kilowatt hours. So it's definitely reduced my usage quite a bit. I expect that will get better as I move into the spring, summer hours and get more solar production. But you can also see a breakdown of which circuits are using the most kilowatt hours over the time period. So that's very nice. In terms of automation, here's the routines. You can see that this one's on by default, and it's basically if there's a power outage, go ahead and switch everything over to battery, but you can prioritize or take things off if you're like, yeah, I don't need to power that in an outage, but I do want to power this. You can do all those things. This one I set up myself initially, and basically it's saying that if you look during these time slots from 11 to 20 to 11:50 at night, run on battery power, and then from midnight to 5 a.m. run on battery power for all these circuits, right? What I found out later is that it's better to have multiple individual routines rather than one that has all of these on it. It's better to have another one for, say, this time slot, 9 to 11, because it's easy to turn that on and off by just hitting the power button. You don't have to mess with it. And same for this one, so I did that for the 5 to 9 time slot. And you can add more. It's pretty painless and not difficult to do. Lastly, let's just show the settings. So you can rename it, obviously. You set your zone and your voltage, etc. Here's where you can go ahead and rename the circuits if you need to. Here's you can set charge level and discharge level. This you have to be careful with because this is at the smart home panel level. You can also set this at the individual Delta Pro level, and you can create some conditions if you're not careful where they compete against each other. So if something isn't working right, the first thing I like to check is what is my smart home setting, and then go check what is the Delta Pro setting, and are they conflicting in any way. You can update here to the latest firmware. Always, kind of hold my breath when I do that, but so far it's not been too bad. And that's pretty much the app. And you can also see here any input from your Delta Pros. It's not as detailed as the Delta Pro interface because on the Delta Pro you can actually get much more detail as far as what's coming in. But that's the app.
So that will conclude my overview of the Ecoflow smart home panel. I hope it's been helpful. I've kind of gone through some of the things I don't like. I'll probably do individual videos, short videos on some of the quirks that I've run into while using both smart home panels on the single phase side as well as the split phase, because there's enough that I don't want to clog up this video, so I'll talk about those individually. But hopefully that helps you understand a little more of what it does, how it could help you, how you could integrate it into your home, and maybe some of the advantages that it would bring you. And, you know, I hope it's a good fit. Until next time, keep watching. Thanks.